Okay. So, that's the equation we have. That's the equation we need. What's the difference? What's the difference between what's highlighted in yellow and what's written in gray? The y isn't isolated in yellow. So, if I isolate the y, will I be in slope-intercept form? And I will be able to graph it by looking at it, right? If I wanted to graph this yellow one, I would have to think about it, wouldn't I? I'd have to put in a number for x, do all the math, then do algebra to find y. That's a pain in the ass, right? But we don't have to do that because all we got to do is isolate y. 2x plus 3y minus 4 equals 0. Is y positive right now? Yes, so should I move it? No, because if I move y, it's going to become negative, and then there's going to be another step for me to deal with isolating it. So I'm not going to move y. 3y equals, what happens when that moves and when that moves? Right, they switch signs. Now how do I get rid of the 3? Divide by 3. Y equals negative 2x, 2/3 x, plus 4/3. That gets you 1 mark because all you did was grade 6 algebra. Now I want you to graph it. Now here's where you actually have to understand what is going on. Because what is my y-intercept right now? 4/3, right? Why is that a problem? Because it's a fraction. I have 2 options. One option is not as good as the other one, but both are right. The best thing to do here is to change your scale and put 1 right there. Because 1 is how many thirds? How many thirds are there in 1? 3. I need 4/3, so I go up 1 more spot. Now I need a slope of negative 2/3. I don't need an x-intercept, which means I can keep the x-axis on the same scale. So all I have to do is count. Down 1, 2, right 1, 2, 3. Or up 1, 2, left 1, 2, 3. That is the best way to do this question. Some of you will, even though I have said that now at least 100 times, some of you will still insist on putting your dot at 1 and 1/3. And I'm going to zoom way in on that so you can see the problem with that. If you insist on doing it this way, and some of you will, even though I'm making a huge deal out of it right now, you will put the dot right there at 1 and 1/3. Now, to count 2/3 of a slope, you have to go down to there and down to there. That's 2. You have to keep the fraction alive. And then you have to go over 3. 1, 2, 3. And now you've got this weird point hanging out in the middle of nowhere that makes it harder to graph. If you change the scale, you can stay on the corners and make it easier for yourselves. But I don't care what you do. And you get 1 for that graph. Yeah? Does everyone understand? Okay. Next, and this next question is the most important question of the next 3 units. You have to understand this. What is every single x-intercept? X, 0. What is every single y-intercept? 0, y. Right now, I have some x's and I have some y's. What do I have there? What do I have there? So all I have to do is take these values and put them in here. If y is 0, what happens to this? It drops out. And I get 5x plus 15 equals 0. If x is 0, what happens to this? It drops out, and I get negative 10y plus 15 equals 0. And you can quite plainly see that if I do algebra on the black one, I will get an x value. If I do algebra on the white red one, I will get a y value. And those are the two values I need. X equals negative 3 and y equals 1.5 or 3/2. Right? Since that's a fraction, I should change my scale. Make that 1, I go up 1, 2, 3/2. There's my y. My x is negative 3. If I am keeping the same scale, how far to the left must I go? 6. And there is my line. Now, if I want the slope here, how would I find it? I would count. Why am I allowed to count in this case? Because it's drawn on a graph and the scales are the same. If I didn't make the scales the same and I put my x-intercept at negative 3, can I count that slope? No, because that, if I count it, is a slope of 3 over 3, which is negative 1. That is not the slope that this would have. Everybody understand? You must check and make sure, 2, 4, 6, that you have done it right. 2 marks there. This one takes 2 seconds. 4 minus 3 over 2 minus 10. 1/12. You should be at the point right now where you don't even need to write out the equation. But if you don't write out the equation and you make an error and you don't check, you're going to lose some marks. That's only 1 mark because it's nice and easy. If this is the line I have, I need the slope of a parallel line. What will the slope of every parallel line be to that line? The same. So if I know that line's slope, do I know the answer to this question? How do I find slope algebraically? What finds me slope automatically? Isolating y. Do I even care about this 12 in my isolation of y? Yes or no? No, why not? What is this question asking me for? It's not asking me to graph anything. It's just asking me for a slope, right? And when y is isolated, where does the slope live? Right before the x. So this 12 means nothing to me. So let's isolate that y. 5x equals 3y. Because I moved that over here, right? Now what? What? Divide by 3, because I want to isolate y. So the slope is 5/3. So what's the slope of every line that is parallel to this line? 5/3. The 12 just shows me where that line's going to go. All of those are 5/3. The 12 is just where it sits on the y-axis. Right? What about perpendicular? What's the slope going to have to do? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes. 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 No, because y needs to be isolated. If you divide here by negative 3, and you divide this by negative 3, you get 5 over negative 3x plus y equals 12. But that still isn't the slope because y is not isolated. You would still need to bring this over and get it away from y, which would change its slope to positive. Okay? Perpendicular, what happens to the slope? Opposite reciprocals. How do I find the slope? Isolate y. 2y equals negative 7x. Y equals negative 7/2 x. What is perpendicular to that? Positive 2/7. You have to change the sign and reciprocate. That's why I did this drawing over here, where we did them both to show you it's not only a reciprocal, it's also negative. Yes, Manu.
What if you just divide the equation by 2 and then get...
That's exactly what you asked for number 4.
No, but then you get a 7 over 2 and you reciprocate that, then does it turn to negative 2 of the 7? If it's negative.
Okay, again, I'm going to explain this to you. When I am explaining it to you, listen to me, do not talk to Jordan. Because I just explained this whole thing to you, and the second I started explaining it to you, you started talking to Jordan. I watched because I wanted to be able to do this when you asked this time, because I knew you were going to, because it's the exact same question. Watch this time. Divide everything by 2, right? Now you have 7 over 2x plus y minus 5 equals 0, yes? The slope is not the slope until y is isolated. So you have to move this over here to make it negative 7/2. But I don't want that slope, I want the perpendicular slope, which means it has to reciprocate 2 7 and be opposite, positive 2/7. Okay? Now, this one's tricky. After tomorrow's lesson, this question becomes the easiest question that you will face. But before tomorrow's lesson, this lesson is difficult. Or this question is slightly difficult. Because you're going to make a rookie mistake, and that's okay. You know that you can draw the equation of a line in this form, yes? Right? Okay. Now, up here, what is that? That's an X. What is that? That's a Y. What is that? That's an M. What do you have there? What do you have there? What do you have there? So fill it in. What goes in for Y? Negative 2 equals. What goes in for M? Negative 2/3. What goes in for X? Negative 5 plus B. What is your job now? Isolate B. He's already isolated, kind of. He's sitting by himself and positive, so he's halfway there. Negative 2 equals 10 over 3, because negative 2 times negative 5 is positive 10/3, plus B. Now what has to happen to that? It's got to come over here and become what? Negative 10/3. Now, a great many of you have trouble with this as a fraction. Still, negative 10/3 is negative 3 1/3, correct? And I already had negative 2, correct? Well, what's negative 2 minus 3 1/3? No. Negative 5 1/3. Negative 2 minus 3 would be negative 5. There's still another third there. That equals B. So now you can give me the equation of the line, right? Which is y equals negative 2/3 x minus 10/3, correct? Now you could find any other point, couldn't you? Because you can choose what you input, right? Oh, sorry. Yeah, 16/3. But, back to my point, who chooses the x value here? You do. Any number you put there, you can solve this, right? Okay. Now, is there another way to do this that isn't algebraic? You could draw it out. Now, most of you live in fear of graphing. You need to get over that fear. Because after this year, as soon as you've done a half page worth of algebra, the last thing that every question asks you to do is graph it. So all the algebra you've just done, now get it on a graph. So you need to get over your fear of graphing. And in this case, graphing is actually the easier way to do this. Where is negative 5, negative 2? Right there, right? Negative 5, negative 2. Slope is negative 2/3. So I could go up 2, 1, 2, and then what direction? Left 1, 2, 3, correct? Well, what's that value? Zero, negative 8. Could I go down 2?
Isn't that
Negative 8, 0, yes. Could I go down 2? To what? I would go down 2 to get to what y value? Negative 4, and then I would go where? Right? 3 to get to negative 2. And I only wanted one more point, you found 2. Because you could have gone up and that way or down and that way. Or you could have done algebra. Who makes that decision? You do. Will I ever force you? Maybe. How will you know what I want to see? The question will tell you what I want to see. If it doesn't tell you what I want to see, then what method do you use? Whatever one you want. Okay? Right now, you have 2 methods. You can graph it and count, or you can use slope-intercept form. I'm going to give you a third method tomorrow. And lastly, is this a right angle triangle? Do you want to check 3 corners? I don't, because that's a lot of work, so I sketch it out. 4, negative 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. There is A. 2, 1, 2, 1. There is B. Negative 2, negative 2. There is C. If you sketch it reasonably well, and you will always be able to sketch it reasonably well because you will always have graph paper available to you, where is the only possible 90-degree corner right now? B. So, where do I have to check? I got to check the slope of CB and the slope of AB. What is the slope of CB? I check it right there. 1 plus 2 over 2 plus 2, 3/4. AB, I check it right there. 1 plus 2 over 2 minus 4, 3/2. Are they opposite? One of them, 3/2. Are they opposite reciprocals? So is that a right angle? No. Now, I noticed a few of you doing this. Because it's a sideways triangle, right? If you're unsure, you could check one of the other 2. Right? Which one of those 2 does it make more sense to check? A or C? Obviously A. But you don't need to. Because you know that these y's are the same, correct? So this is going straight across. Yeah? So what is perpendicular from straight across? Straight up and down. And that point is obviously not straight up and down, is it? Everybody good? Sketch first. So, have I actually answered this question yet? No. Answer the question for me. No, it's not. Because the slopes aren't op recips. Because I'm too lazy to write it all out. That's worth 2. That's worth 2. I think, making the whole thing, because I made everything worth 2, didn't I? Oh, no, I made that. These 2 are only worth 1, because you only had to do one thing with all of them. Making the whole thing out of 2, 4, and 3 is 7, and 4 is 11. 7, 11. And class is over in what, 10 minutes? On the old version of the app, they didn't update it. So according to my phone, you're all in class until yeah, you should have been out already. But I don't know what the schedule is today. I can't remember. Class started at 12:15. It was 60 minutes long, or 12:20. I don't know. You should be leaving at like 1:20 or some crap. All right? If you arrived halfway through the marking of this assignment, you will notice the little red light is flashing. It is all recorded. Go tonight and look at it. You have no homework from me tonight. Tomorrow we start a new lesson. Tomorrow will be another version of the equation of a line, but one that is one that has more use than slope-intercept form. Okay? Okay. It looks ugly, but it's actually very simple to use. Okay? All right. Do what you will. But you can't leave, so don't ask.